On a heavy June afternoon in Wake Forest, North Carolina, the community pool lot was filled with the sound of children shrieking, flip-flops slapping, and parents shouting reminders about sunscreen. It should have been ordinary. But what happened in that parking lot was anything. The peace shattered when a voice rang out, sharp and cutting, loud enough to freeze conversations mid-sentence. "Who do you think you are, standing here like you own the place?" Heads turned instantly. At the poolside tables, soda cans hung in midair. Phones lifted, recording without anyone needing to ask. Marcus Ellison, 44, stood beside his black SUV with a clipboard in hand. A senior planning analyst, calm by nature, he was reviewing landscaping sketches with a contractor when the words hit him like a slap. He turned slowly, as if choosing each second carefully. The woman striding across the asphalt was impossible to miss. Jaw locked, sandals smacking like a drumbeat, eyes narrowed with the authority of someone who lived for confrontation. Her name was Marjorie Whitcomb, the neighborhood's self-appointed enforcer. Everyone knew her reputation, and everyone knew she thrived on moments like this. "Excuse me?" Marcus asked, his tone even, though the sharpness of the interruption had already drawn a crowd. Marjorie planted herself just a few feet from him. "This parking lot is for members only. Not for strangers. Not for people dragging in contractors who don't belong here." The contractor, Luis Herrera, shifted awkwardly, his Panther's cap pulled lower over his eyes as he looked down at the sketches in his hands. He wanted no part of what was unfolding. Marcus kept his composure. "Ma'am, I live here. My family and I just moved into the house on Wisteria Bend last week." "That's not what I heard," Marjorie shot back without hesitation. Her chin lifted, daring him to argue. "You're renting. And renters don't get the same privileges. Move your car before I call security." By now, the noise of the pool had gone quiet. Kids with dripping towels stopped to stare. Parents leaned forward in their chairs. Teenagers lifted their phones, framing the scene with the anticipation that something ugly was about to happen. Marcus tried to end it before it escalated. "I'm reviewing plans for my property. That's it. We'll be gone in a few minutes." But Marjorie wasn't interested in reason. She stepped closer into his space. "Don't you talk down to me. I've lived here 18 years. I know who belongs and you don't." Marcus drew a controlled breath. "Please back up. You're too close." The tension became a wire stretched too tight. Marjorie's cheeks flushed crimson. Her chest heaved. And then, in a single motion that silenced the entire lot, she spat. The spit landed on Marcus's shirt. The sound was small, but the meaning was explosive. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Luis recoiled. A teenage girl whispered, "Oh my God, I got that on video." Marcus stood completely still. He looked down at his shirt, the damp stains spreading against the fabric. When he looked back up, his expression had hardened. His voice cut through the silence. "You spat on me. In front of everyone here." Marjorie didn't flinch. She folded her arms and answered with venom. "I did what I had to do. People like you think you can show up and change everything. Not in this neighborhood." Her words, "people like you," hung in the air like smoke. Everyone heard them. Everyone knew exactly what she meant. A man in a red polo muttered under his breath, "She's gone too far this time." "She's harassed us for years," another added. "Now everyone knows." But the video didn't just expose Marjorie's cruelty. It revealed something else. The way Marcus refused to bend, even when humiliated in front of his entire neighborhood. 2 weeks earlier, none of this seemed possible. The Ellisons had pulled into their driveway with a U-Haul stacked high, ready for a fresh start. Marcus and his wife, Leah, had chosen Magnolia Ridge for its quiet streets and safe sidewalks. For their children, Jaden and Nia, it promised freedom. The basketball hoop Jaden had begged for, the bike rides Nia dreamed about without cars speeding by. The first morning after they arrived, curtains twitched as neighbors peeked out. Some waved politely. Others only watched. Leah noticed the silence and muttered, "Guess they don't do welcome baskets here." That afternoon, while unpacking boxes, Leah spotted a woman standing across the street, arms folded, eyes fixed on their house. "Who's that?" she whispered. Marcus glanced out the window and shrugged. No idea. But she looks like she thinks she owns the place. They both laughed it off. But the woman, Marjorie, didn't fade into the background. She became a constant presence. During Marcus's morning runs, she tugged her dog to the other side of the street without a word. When Leah's brother parked his truck near the curb, a flyer about parking violations appeared under the wiper the next morning. Emails were sent to the HOA board questioning whether Marcus had submitted landscaping plans, even though he had just moved in. Neighbors whispered their own stories. One man said she'd reported his son's basketball hoop for being left out overnight. Another said she called animal control because a cat sat on her lawn for 10 minutes. A woman recalled inviting Marjorie over for coffee to ease tensions, only to be told her curtains were too sheer for a family neighborhood. Marjorie wasn't officially on the HOA board, but she acted like she had written the bylaws herself. And most people tolerated her out of fear. Marcus saw it clearly. People like her only get away with it because no one pushes back, he told Leah one night. The second someone stands firm, she loses her grip. Leah frowned. So what's your plan? I don't bow to bullies, Marcus said. Not here. Not anywhere. But even he didn't expect the line to be crossed so soon, or so publicly. On the morning of the incident, Marcus had woken to the smell of pancakes and the sound of his kids fighting over bacon. It felt like the start of a normal Saturday. He had a contractor meeting scheduled to discuss landscaping, and he was determined to keep it efficient. Luis met him by the pool lot, sketches spread out, the sun beating down. They were halfway through reviewing options when Marjorie descended. The confrontation spiraled from there, accusations, threats, refusal to back down, and then the spit that shocked everyone. By Sunday morning, Marcus's phone buzzed nonstop. Friends, co-workers, even distant relatives had seen the video. Some sent sympathy. Others urged him to press charges. At the breakfast table, Leah asked him directly, "So, what's your move?" Marcus sipped his coffee before answering. "I've already filed a formal complaint with the HOA. I'm not letting this slide." Leah nodded. "But she's gotten away with too much for too long." Jaden sat quietly before asking the question Marcus had dreaded. "Dad, why did she hate us so much?" Marcus pulled him close. "Some people fear change. Some people try to control what they don't understand. But what she did says more about her than it does about us." The boy nodded, but his eyes still held confusion. The truth was clear. The Tuesday night HOA meeting was usually a sleepy affair. 10 chairs occupied. A few retirees debating lawn maintenance. Maybe one parent raising concerns about the playground mulch. Most of the neighborhood skipped it, trusting the board to handle the small stuff. But not this time. By the time the sun slipped behind the pines, the clubhouse parking lot was overflowing. Cars lined the street, headlights cutting through the dusk as neighbors hurried inside. Word had spread faster than wildfire. The man Marjorie spit on was coming, and the board planned to address it. Inside, the air buzzed with low voices and restless shifting. Folding chairs scraped against the tiled floor. People leaned against walls when the seats filled. The smell of coffee mixed with the faint odor of chlorine drifting in from the pool next door. This wasn't just a meeting anymore. It was an event. At the front sat the board's secretary, Harold Kim, papers stacked neatly in front of him. His glasses slid down his nose as he scanned the agenda, but everyone knew that piece of paper didn't matter. The only item on anyone's mind was the confrontation. Marjorie arrived early, as expected. She wore a crisp white blouse buttoned high, her posture rigid. She sat in the front row, arms folded, lips pressed thin. She didn't look at Marcus when he entered. She didn't have to. Everyone else did. Marcus walked in with his wife, Leah, at his side. He wore a navy blazer, pressed slacks, and the calm expression that made people pay attention without him raising his voice. Neighbors nodded as he passed, some patting his shoulder, others whispering quiet words of encouragement. Leah squeezed his hand before he sat. The room fell silent when Harold cleared his throat. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending. We have several items on the agenda tonight, but first," he paused, his eyes scanning the crowd. "We need to address what happened last Saturday." A murmur ran through the room. All eyes shifted toward Marjorie, who remained stone-faced. Harold continued. Before we proceed, I'd like to introduce our new HOA president, elected earlier this month before officially moving into the neighborhood. Please welcome Mr. Marcus Ellison. The air shifted instantly. Some gasped. Others exchanged wide-eyed looks. A few clapped, hesitant at first, then louder as realization sank in. Marcus stood slowly, placing his hands on the table. At that moment, Marjorie's mask cracked. Her face drained of color. Her lips parted as if to speak, but nothing came out. The same man she spat on was standing at the head of the table, introduced as the very leader of the community she claimed to protect. Marcus's voice was calm but carried weight. Most of you know me only from what you saw or what you heard this past weekend. Before we move on with any business, I need to address that moment. The room went still. Even the hum of the ceiling fans seemed to fade. On Saturday, Marcus said, while meeting with a contractor to discuss my property, I was confronted. It was aggressive. It was disrespectful. And it was unacceptable. Many of you witnessed it. Many more saw the video. I don't need to replay the details. But I will say this, no one in this community or anywhere else should ever be spat on or humiliated for existing in a place they call home. A murmur of agreement spread. Heads nodded. Eyes stayed locked on him. Marjorie shot her hand up abruptly. Excuse me. I have a right to respond. Harold hesitated, then gave a curt nod. Go ahead, Marjorie. She rose, smoothing her blouse with shaky hands. Everyone is painting me like a villain, but that's not what happened. I was defending the rules. This man, she jabbed a finger toward Marcus, was breaking policy by using community space for business. I overreacted, yes, but I had every right to confront him. The spitting, well, that was a mistake. But don't act like he's innocent. The room erupted. A voice from the back cut her off. You spit on him, Marjorie. We all saw it. Another voice followed, sharper. You've harassed us for years. Basketball hoops, trash cans, curtains. Enough is enough. Marjorie's eyes darted nervously. She stood taller, refusing to bend. So what? You're all against me now? After everything I've done to keep this neighborhood decent? Marcus didn't rush to respond. He let the silence stretch until it pressed on everyone. Then he spoke. This isn't about sides. It's about respect. We all pay dues. We all follow the bylaws. And every one of us deserves to feel at home without being policed or humiliated. What happened to me isn't just my problem. It's a symptom of a bigger issue. Too many people feel watched instead of welcomed. That stops now. The words landed like a hammer. First, soft clapping from a few. Then louder, until the sound filled the room, drowning out any protest Marjorie might have raised. She sat down hard, face red, arms folded tighter across her chest. Leah watched from the side, pride in her eyes. Marcus hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't shouted her down. But he had shifted the balance in a way no one could ignore. The rest of the meeting trudged forward through budget updates and landscaping notes, but everyone knew the night had already been decided. For the first time in years, Marjorie wasn't the loudest voice in the room. When the session ended, people lingered in the parking lot instead of heading home. They replayed Marcus's calm speech. They whispered about Marjorie's unraveling. And they speculated about what would come next. Marcus stayed behind to shake hands, answer questions, and properly introduce himself to neighbors who had only known him through rumor or viral video. Leah stood nearby, linking her arm through his when another resident drifted over. Marjorie didn't leave right away. She lingered near her SUV, arms folded, eyes darting from group to group. She could feel her authority slipping. The control she once held by intimidation was unraveling. Finally, she marched back inside the clubhouse where Marcus was gathering his notes. We need to talk, she said, her tone clipped. Marcus looked up, expression calm. All right, let's talk. A handful of neighbors lingered by the door, sensing the confrontation wasn't over. Marjorie slammed her hands on the table. You humiliated me in there. You turned everyone against me. Marcus leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. No, Marjorie. You did that yourself. Her nostrils flared. I've kept this place running smoothly for nearly 2 decades. Before you came along, everyone respected me. Respect? Marcus's voice was even. That wasn't respect. That was fear. People avoided you to keep the peace. That's not leadership. You don't understand, she hissed. If people don't enforce the rules, everything falls apart. The lawns get messy. The pool becomes unsafe. Property values drop. I've protected this place. Marcus rose slowly, his height casting a quiet shadow across the table. You spat on me, Marjorie. In front of children. In front of your neighbors. Do you call that protection? A whisper floated from the doorway. She needed to hear that. For the first time that night, Marjorie's voice cracked. I made a mistake. But you don't know how this works. They'll turn on you too. Just like they turned on me. Maybe, Marcus said. But if they do, it won't be because I disrespected them. It will be because we disagreed on decisions that matter. That's leadership. What you did wasn't leadership. It was cruelty. Her face softened for a flicker, regret threatening to surface, but pride crushed it down. She straightened her shoulders. You think you can fix this place? Fine. But don't think for a second you can push me out. I'll be watching. She stormed toward the door, her heels echoing against the tile. The neighbors near the doorway parted, letting her pass, their faces hard with disapproval. Marcus didn't reply. He didn't need to. Leah walked over, laying a hand on his shoulder. You handled that better than I would have. He exhaled, rubbing his face. She's not going to stop. She'll keep pushing. Then you keep doing what you did tonight, Leah said firmly. Steady. People are already seeing the difference. As they left the clubhouse, neighbors waved. Some even clapped lightly. A man said, "Finally, someone stood up to her." Another added, "You've got our support, Mr. President." But Marcus didn't bask in the praise. He knew Marjorie was right about one thing. Leadership wouldn't be easy. Loyalty shifted. Memories were short. Patience ran thin. And Marjorie's pride would not let her fade quietly. The real battle for Magnolia Ridge was only beginning. By Wednesday morning, Magnolia Ridge moved like a town after a storm. Branches still on the ground. Skies clearing. People stepping out to see what survived. Neighbors who once looked past Marcus now waved first. Cars slowed so drivers could lean out and say a quick thank you. The courtesy felt real, but he knew courtesy could be shallow. Respect holds. Courtesy snaps. On his dawn run, he saw the shift in small, telling ways. A couple walking a husky nodded instead of crossing the street. A dad hauling a trash bin called out, "You said what needed saying." A teen on a bike matched Marcus's pace for half a block and blurted, "I showed my mom the video. She said it's about time." Marcus kept his stride even and his replies measured. He didn't plan to turn a parking lot humiliation into a personal brand. He planned to turn it into a standard, dignity, due process, and rules applied without a sneer. Leah watched him lace up for work. "You have their attention," she said. "Attention isn't the same as loyalty," he answered. She nodded. Then bank trust, not applause. By mid-morning, the inbox delivered proof that applause had limits. A neighborhood-wide email arrived from Marjorie Whitcomb, subject line, "A clarification for concerned residents." The body read like a legal brief without the law. She framed herself as the sentinel on the wall. She claimed she acted to protect shared spaces. She apologized for a regrettable lapse without naming the spit. Then she pivoted to fear. She warned of a slippery slope. She conjured images of contractors squatting in common lots, out-of-control dogs, and a quiet erosion of standards that keep our property values strong. The first replies trickled in. A retiree wrote, "Marjorie has always cared about Magnolia Ridge." Another added, "Heated words happen. Let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater." Then a third reply hit harder, "We all saw the video. This isn't about mulch. It's about respect." Marcus read them once and closed the thread. He didn't need to win an email war. He needed to build a process that made email wars unnecessary. He pulled up the bylaws and scanned for leverage points. He found language that could be sharpened without a referendum, a code of conduct for meetings, an anti-harassment clause tied to enforcement contacts, and a transparent complaint pathway with deadlines and receipts. None of it was flashy. All of it mattered. By lunchtime, the first test came to his desk without warning. Tanya and Joel Dunbar, a young couple on Rosemallow Lane, filed an architectural request for a 6-foot privacy fence. They had just adopted a large rescue dog that could clear 4 feet without a running start. The bylaws did not prohibit 6 feet. They required board approval. Past boards had waved that rule around like a cudgel and then called it tradition. Marcus flagged the request for the next meeting and wrote a simple note in the margin. Apply the rule as written. Hear them fully. Decide in the open. He knew nothing ignited HOA politics faster than fences. Fences separated taste from taste. Fences drew self-portraits on property lines. Fences said private when neighbors wanted open. Fences gave Marjorie a microphone. On Thursday, word got around before the agenda was posted. That afternoon, Marjorie went door to door, her dog trailing, her tone hushed and urgent. 6 feet will ruin the sightlines, she told one longtime ally. Once one goes up, we live in a stockade, she warned another. At a third house, she lowered her voice. This president wants to turn us into a free-for-all. Today it's fences. Tomorrow it's chicken coops. She didn't mention the spit. She never would. She didn't need to. Fear travels faster than facts. Leah caught snippets at the mail kiosk. She's saying you're about to greenlight chaos, a neighbor named Pat Lang reported. Marcus shrugged. Chaos is letting unwritten traditions override written bylaws. Pat smirked. Put that on a yard sign. That night, the Ellisons sat on the porch and counted porch lights that winked on like stars. Nia rode slow circles on her scooter. Jaden practiced crossover dribbles near the curb. Leah leaned against the railing and watched the street settle. You can win a vote and still lose the block, she said. So talk eye to eye before you talk from the table. Marcus checked the time. I'll visit the Dunbars before dinner. Leah smiled. Take non-legal sentences with you. The visit was simple and honest. Tanya described a skittish, gentle pit lab mix that jumped when thunder cracked and when skateboards clacked. Joel showed photos of the dog looking both massive and terrified. Marcus asked practical questions about placement, sightlines, and material. He left with details and a sense of the couple's good faith. He also left with a sentence he could carry into the room. Safety is not disorder. Safety is care. Friday brought a surprise. A plain white envelope sat on the Ellisons' doormat. No stamp. No name. Inside was a single printed line. New presidents don't last if they forget who built this place. Marcus showed it to Leah. She traced the edge with a finger and then laid it flat. Don't feed it, she said. Starve it with procedure. He slid it into a folder labeled Keep. He had no interest in theater, but he had learned to archive the moments that later explain the arc. The meeting arrived with heat still sitting over Magnolia Ridge like a lid. The clubhouse filled again. Not as many stood, but no one came sleepy. The board took their seats. Harold Kim adjusted his glasses and nodded for Marcus to begin. Marcus didn't open with fences. He opened with rules for how they would talk about. Then he turned to the fence request. He invited the Dunbars to speak first. Tanya described the dog's panic responses. Joel laid out the yard's slope and where a taller panel would prevent a clean jump. They kept it factual. They kept it humble. Before they could finish, Marjorie stood without being recognized. This is not within community standards, she said, voice sharp, shoulders squared. We have always kept fences at 4 feet. 6 feet will turn Magnolia Ridge into a maze of walls. Buyers drive through and see prison yards. Values fall. We will regret it. Marcus didn't match her heat. He didn't need to. The bylaws allow 6 feet with board approval, he said. We are the board. This is the process. Murmurs slid through the room. People who had accepted Marjorie's pronouncements as gospel heard the hinge creak and the door opened to a fact. Tradition is not law. Marjorie pushed again. Tradition protects us when bylaws are vague. Marcus nodded once. And tradition fails us when it's used to silence needs that fit the rulebook. He turned back to the couple. Will you consider a solid panel facing your yard and a good neighbor side facing the street to maintain visual continuity? Tanya nodded eagerly. Joel added, we'll stain it to match existing palettes. The compromise landed well. It said yes to safety and yes to sightlines. A board member named Rita Cole asked one question about material. Another member asked about placement at corners to protect driver views. Both answers were clear. Marcus called the question. Approve the 6-foot fence with material and orientation as stated. All in favor? Hands rose. Opposed? What? The motion carried. Relief rippled. Tanya's eyes shone. Joel's shoulders dropped as if a weight slid off them both. After the vote, a man in the back raised his hand. Are we going to pretend we don't know why we needed a civility code? The room tightened. Marcus could feel the pull to play prosecutor. He refused it. We are not relitigating what a video already captured, he said. We are building something that makes the next incident less likely and easier to resolve. He let that sit. Then he added what he knew the room needed. We will also address violations privately and formally, as our bylaws require. Marjorie sat stiff, lips pressed, eyes forward. She did not defend herself. She did not apologize. She did what pride does when it loses a lever. It looks for a new one. The meeting moved to sidewalks and playground repairs and light bulbs at trailheads. Residents spoke more than they had in months. People listened longer than they were used to. When the gavel fell, groups lingered. Monday morning broke with a warning disguised as routine. The sprinklers ticked on across Wisteria Bend, leaving arcs of water across manicured lawns. The school bus hissed to a stop at the corner, and children shuffled on with backpacks too heavy for their shoulders. But beneath that surface calm, something else was moving. By 9 o'clock, neighbors began receiving knocks at their doors. The knockers weren't salesmen. They weren't charity fundraisers. They were Marjorie Whitcomb's allies, retirees and loyalists who had once treated her like a sheriff in a town without deputies. Each one carried a clipboard. Each one carried the same sheet, a petition to censure the HOA president. The language was sharp, calculated to wound without seeming irrational. It claimed Marcus Ellison had overstepped his authority. It claimed his new civility code restricted free expression. It claimed his approval of the 6-foot fence would destroy neighborhood aesthetics and depress property values. It didn't mention the spit. It didn't mention the video. It rewrote the script, casting Marjorie as the longtime guardian of order and Marcus as the dangerous newcomer unraveling the rules. By noon, whispers filled the sidewalks. She's trying to push him out. She's got 20 signatures already. She's going door to door with Frank and Carol. Some laughed. Others worried. The split was visible again, as if the neighborhood were being asked to choose between a future and a past. Marcus didn't hear about it from social media or the mailbox. He heard it from Pat Lang, the same neighbor who had once called Marjorie a storm cloud. Pat's knock was firm, urgent. She's got a petition, Pat said without waiting to be invited in. And she's not bluffing. I saw 3 people sign while I was walking my dog. Leah frowned. What exactly does she want the board to do with it? Force a censure vote, Pat said. Humiliate him publicly. Make him look weak. She doesn't expect to remove him, she just wants to damage him. Marcus leaned against the counter, arms crossed. His expression didn't change, but his silence carried weight. Then we make sure the petition doesn't stand on lies, he finally said. That evening, while Leah helped the kids with homework, Marcus drafted a direct response. Not a rebuttal full of adjectives, but a fact-driven record. He attached the bylaw clause permitting 6-foot fences with board approval. He listed the provisions of the civility code, pointing out that none restricted speech, only harassment. He emphasized that every decision so far had been made in the open, voted on, and recorded. When he finished, he sent it to Harold Kim with a single line. If she delivers a petition, attach this as the official board response. Harold replied within minutes, already anticipated. You'll have the floor first if it comes up. Leah read the draft over his shoulder. It's solid, But facts don't always matter to people who want to fight. Then we let the process expose her, Marcus said. The next board meeting came faster than expected. The clubhouse filled again, the air charged with anticipation. People came not to discuss playground mulch or pool hours, but to watch a showdown. The first test had landed. The first crack had formed. The next test would not be about a fence or a meeting rule. It would be about whether the neighborhood's memory could outlast one woman's pride. It would be about whether Marcus could keep principle from becoming posture. It would be about whether respect could survive a counterattack built from habit, whispers, and the thrill of control. He turned off the lamp. He checked the locks. He looked once at the folder marked Keep. He left it shut. Tomorrow would bring the knock he knew was coming. And the person at the door would not be asking for permission. They would be asking for a fight dressed up as a petition. The footage spread faster than gossip at a barbecue. By mid-morning, phones buzzed across Magnolia Ridge with the same grainy clip. It showed Marjorie Whitcomb standing on the curb outside Marcus Ellison's home, framed in the yellow glow of a street lamp. She wasn't knocking. She wasn't talking. She was just standing, pointing her phone at the house as though documenting an enemy's position. The timestamp read 12:03 a.m. Neighbors didn't need commentary. The image said everything. It said obsession. It said intimidation. It said she wasn't done, not even after being voted down, not even after her petition collapsed. By noon, the HOA inbox overflowed with demands. Something has to be done. This crossed the line. If this doesn't violate community trust, what does? People who had tolerated her in silence now spoke loudly. People who had once nodded to her in fear now muttered openly at the mailbox. The spell was broken. Marcus didn't post on social media. He didn't rush to the group chat. He went straight to Harold Kim, the secretary, and requested an emergency board session. "This isn't about offense," he said. "This is about safety. My family deserves to sleep without someone prowling in the night with a phone camera." Harold agreed. The emergency session was scheduled for Friday. Word spread again, and when that night arrived, the clubhouse was so full that people stood outside, pressing faces against the glass. Inside, the boards sat stiff, papers stacked, coffee cups trembling slightly on the folding table. Marjorie sat in the front row as usual, but this time she didn't look like a guardian of order. She looked like someone cornered, clutching a binder to her chest like armor. Marcus stood first. He held up a printout of the video still. "This is what my children woke up to," he said, his voice steady but sharp. "A neighbor standing outside at midnight, filming our home. This isn't community oversight. This is harassment. This is intimidation. And this neighborhood has tolerated it for too long." Murmurs of agreement rippled. A woman shouted, "She did the same outside my house last year." Another added, "She's been policing us for years, and we let her." Marjorie jumped to her feet, voice raised. "I was documenting a violation. Their porch light was too bright. It violated the bylaws on exterior illumination." Gasps followed. A man in the back muttered,